What if the greatest conspiracy wasn't in some document, but in your mind? What if everything you call life is just a carefully constructed illusion? An illusion that started before you could speak, before you knew your own name. They trained you to see like a slave, to think like a prisoner, to die without ever realizing you were God, pretending to be small. You weren't born afraid. You were taught fear. You weren't born limited. You were programmed to shrink. And now, you're about to remember who you were before the forgetting, not in theory, but in vision. They didn't take your power. They convinced you you never had any. From the moment you opened your eyes in this world, the conditioning began. Not by accident, but by design. You were handed an identity, a name, a gender, a nationality, a belief system, as if any of those things could contain who you really are. And before you could speak, before you could question, you accepted it all as truth. But what if it wasn't? What if you, as you know yourself, is just a mask you learned to wear to survive? What if your entire self-concept was built in response to fear, approval, and punishment? You learned to smile when you were praised, to hide when you were shamed, to conform when you felt unsafe. That's not a personality. That's a survival mechanism. And every layer you added to feel accepted buried the truth of what you are. Before this costume, before this flesh, before this identity, you were something vast, something whole, something eternal. Not a body, not a brain, not even a soul in the way religion defines it. You were pure awareness, the original witness, the unshaped essence of God, before it wore form. But once you entered this world of form, something changed. You were taught to trade your awareness for attention, your curiosity for obedience, your sovereignty for structure. And the moment you agreed to be only human, you began to suffer like one. The game was rigged before you knew you were playing. They gave you language to separate, clocks to rush, grades to rank, gods to fear. They gave you mirrors that only showed your flaws, rules that only rewarded compliance, and stories that made you feel small in a world too big to question. And worst of all, they made you forget that you're not inside this reality. This reality is inside of you. You're not the character. You're the consciousness behind the character. And until you wake up to that, life will feel like a battlefield where every victory still feels like a loss, because the moment you forget your divine origin, you begin living as a copy of a copy of a copy, a hand-me-down version of your true self. And it's not your fault. You didn't choose the script. But now, you have a chance to rewrite it, to erase every lie that said you were less, to remember what they never wanted you to know. You are not here to survive. You are here to create. You are not a product of your past. You are the author of your now. And that shift, from identity to essence, from reaction to authorship, is what separates those who are lost from those who awaken. You didn't choose this world. It was already spinning, and you were born into its rules. But what if those rules weren't designed to free you, but to fence you in? From the moment you took your first breath, a script was waiting, not to awaken you, but to sedate you. Go to school, follow orders, trust authority, fit in, make money, consume, repeat. And when the emptiness comes, and it always comes, they don't fix it. They monetize it. They sell you more pills, more streaming, more escape routes that lead back to the same cage. You scroll your pain away. You shop your soul to sleep, because the system doesn't want you aware. It wants you occupied, not thinking, just reacting, not questioning, just complying, not creating, just consuming. And every institution plays its part. Religion gave you a God to fear, not a God to awaken within. Education taught you to memorize their answers, but never question their premises. Media doesn't inform you. It instructs you, tells you what to desire, what to panic about, who to hate, and who to trust. Always someone else, never yourself. And before you realize it, you're not living. You're performing. You're not becoming. You're just adapting to a system that only rewards your obedience, not your awareness. They say you're free, but your thoughts were manufactured in someone else's factory. Your dreams, downloaded from a machine that doesn't care whether you live or awaken, only that you continue to function. And here's the part no one likes to admit. They made you love your cage. They made you decorate it, show it off on social media, defend it against anyone who dares to shake the bars. You protect the very thing that's keeping you small. Because freedom is terrifying when all you've ever known is control. So you cling to the familiar lies. Work hard and you'll succeed. Trust the system. This is just how life is. But beneath that programming, there's a truth that won't die. Awakening doesn't feel safe. It feels like fire. Because the truth doesn't give you comfort. It demands transformation. It burns the version of you that was built by fear and applause. But that's exactly what liberation requires. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to fracture the illusion. You weren't designed to follow. You were meant to see through the lies and walk away from them, because the system can't survive your remembrance. It depends on your sleep, your silence, your agreement. And when even one soul truly wakes up, it threatens the entire dream. Think of the student who was told she wasn't smart because she couldn't sit still for 8 hours a day. She doodled in the margins, asked too many why questions, was labeled difficult. She wasn't difficult. She was awake, in a room built to keep her asleep. And what did the system do? Punish her for intuition, medicate her for imagination, break her spirit and reassemble it into something acceptable. Now she works a job she hates, quiet, polite, grateful for a life she was never meant to settle for, not because she failed, but because the system succeeded. They called it science, but it was more than that. It was a doorway, a crack in the foundation of everything you thought was real. In the early 20th century, physicists peered into the heart of matter, and what they found shook the pillars of reality. They thought the universe was made of stuff, particles, atoms, matter. But the deeper they looked, the more everything dissolved. Atoms weren't solid, particles weren't fixed. At the core of everything was nothing, just vibrations, just energy, just potential. And here's the bombshell. That potential doesn't become real until it's observed. That's not mysticism. That's quantum physics. Your observation, your attention, collapses possibility into form. Reality doesn't happen without you. Think about that. You're not walking through a world that exists without you. You're participating in the projection of it, moment by moment, frame by frame. You are the observer, and the observer is not passive. It is creative. Consciousness doesn't live in the brain. The brain lives inside consciousness. And this one revelation was enough to dismantle the entire scientific model. So they buried it. They kept the theories, but silenced the implications. Because what happens when people realize they aren't victims of reality, they're the architects? What happens when people stop obeying matter and start moving it with mind? The answer is revolution, not of guns, but of awareness. This is why the system distracts you. Because if you really knew what you are, you would stop looking for miracles and start behaving like one. You would stop begging God and start aligning with God. Because the real secret is this: you don't live in the universe. The universe lives in you. And when you learn to see from that place, that still point behind the mind, you stop reacting and start creating. The most dangerous prison is the one you can't see, and the most powerful warden is the one you mistake for yourself. They don't need chains when you carry your own. That's what the ego is, not a villain, not a demon, but a frightened child pretending to be God while trembling in the dark. The ego was born the moment you felt unsafe, the moment you believed love had to be earned, the moment pain became identity. It whispered, be good, stay quiet, be liked, be enough. And so, you built a mask. You buried your truth under survival. And every time life hurt you, the ego added another layer. Until one day, you looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. Polished, performative, exhausted, but empty. The ego fears one thing above all else: the unknown. So it clings to what's broken, because at least the broken is familiar. It would rather repeat trauma than face transformation. It would rather blame than awaken. It would rather control than feel. But here's the trap. The ego will promise you safety while feeding you fear. It will chase power while keeping you powerless. It will convince you you're separate from God while secretly longing to return. And this is why most people never wake up. Because to awaken, you must die. Not physically, but psychologically. You must let the old self unravel. The false self, the performance, the armor, and that's terrifying. Because you don't know who you are without the pain, without the roles, without the trauma that shaped your personality. But here's the truth. The ego isn't you. It's who you became to survive who you forgot you were. And once you see it, truly see it, you can thank it and step out of it. But if you don't, you'll keep living life through a lens of distortion, reacting to illusions, fighting ghosts, and calling it reality. Freedom isn't found in becoming more. It's found in unbecoming everything that was never real. And when the mask finally falls, what's left is not empty. What's left is God. Most people live their entire lives inside a loop. They call it reality, but it's not reality. It's a projection, a looping film of unhealed beliefs, emotional residue, and forgotten trauma. It's not fate. It's not karma. It's feedback. Your life is not random. It is responsive. What you experience on the outside, the chaos, the joy, the betrayals, the breakthroughs, is not happening to you. It's happening through you. Reality is a mirror, and the mirror doesn't show you what you want. It shows you what you are, beneath the performance, beneath the affirmations, beneath the mask. You think you're reacting to the world, but in truth, you're reacting to your own subconscious being thrown back at you. That anxiety you feel when someone doesn't text back, it's not about them. It's about the wound in you that still associates silence with rejection. That anger you feel toward toxic people, it's not about them. It's about your repeated refusal to enforce your own boundaries. That lack you feel in your bank account, it's not just the economy. It's the echo of a childhood where you equated love with struggle. The world is not cruel. The world is precise. It mirrors not your intentions, but your frequencies. And your frequency is shaped not by what you say, but by what you believe when no one is watching. Not by who you pretend to be, but by who you secretly think you are. You say you want abundance, but deep down, you believe you're not worthy. And so the mirror obliges. You say you want love, but your frequency screams, I am not enough. And so the mirror stays cold. Here's the trap. Most people try to change the mirror. They chase more money, swap partners, move cities, start over. But the reflection doesn't change because the source of the projection hasn't. You can't paint over a cracked mirror and expect clarity. You must become what you want to see, not mimic, not fake it. Become. That means rewriting the scripts you inherited. It means confronting the fears you've buried under personality. It means standing bare, emotionally and spiritually, and declaring, I am the cause, and I accept the responsibility to become the cure. And that's when the shift begins, not from outside, from within. The moment you change your internal state, the mirror has no choice but to adjust, because it wasn't punishing you, it was matching you. Take the man who blames every failed relationship on betrayal. She was dishonest. She didn't appreciate me. It's always the other person. But dig deeper and you find a pattern. He grew up with emotional neglect. He never learned to receive love, only to earn it. So now, when someone shows up authentically, he distrusts it. He self-sabotages, pushes them away, attracts emotionally unavailable partners to match the belief. Love must be hard to count. The pattern isn't punishment. It's the mirror screaming, until you heal this, you will relive this. And the moment he realizes that the betrayal began with his own self-abandonment, not with others, he stops blaming. He stops chasing closure. He stops calling his trauma truth. He shifts. He heals. And suddenly, the mirror softens. He meets someone new. But this time, he doesn't confuse love with proving. And for the first time in his life, the mirror reflects wholeness instead of wounds. Your life isn't the result of random events. It's the exact configuration of what you've decided to believe, consciously or not. The mirror isn't a punishment. It's a teacher, and it will keep repeating the same lesson until the student no longer runs from their own reflection. So the next time something in your life feels unfair, unkind, or unchangeable, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this showing me about me? Because when you finally see the mirror as divine precision, you no longer fix the world. You fix the source. You fix the signal. And reality bends. Not because you forced it, but because you finally remembered. You're not reacting to the world. You're projecting it. You keep asking, where is God? But the real question is, where isn't God? Because the divine isn't missing. It's misunderstood. Hidden in plain sight, behind everything you've been trained to overlook. God doesn't show up with thunder. God shows up in whispers and waits for you to pay attention. You've been taught to search too far, too high, too holy, so you miss what's right in front of you. Until you learn to see God in three places, you'll keep mistaking the miracle for the mundane and calling separation reality. 1. In the world around you. You look at the city and see pavement, cables, glass. But what you're actually seeing is consciousness that hardened into form. Every building, every machine, every invention. began in the invisible realm of thought. You're walking through the dreams of those who believed hard enough to make them real. Take the stoplight at the corner. It's not just a pole with colors. It's a system, imagined by a mind, to bring order to chaos. Someone saw a problem, then invented a solution that now governs billions of lives. That's not just engineering. That's spirit applied to structure. It's God moving through human intellect in real time. The ordinary is divine in disguise, and the moment you stop calling it normal, you start remembering the miracle you're standing in. 2. In your own reality, you say your life is hard, that nothing ever changes, that you're stuck. But the truth is, you're not stuck in circumstances. You're stuck in subconscious agreements. Your world is not punishing you. It's reflecting you. You're always broke. You say it's the economy, but deep down, you still carry a belief from childhood. That money is evil, or you're unworthy to receive it. So what happens? Opportunities ghost you. Debts pile up. Jobs go to someone else. Not because the world hates you, but because your frequency told the mirror what to show you. Once you shift the belief, the outer world responds. God hides in the code, the patterns. And when you become conscious of the pattern, you regain the power to rewrite it. 3. In other people. This one's the hardest, because it requires you to see God in the people who offend you, trigger you, even betray you. But if you miss God here, you'll miss God in yourself. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your ego wants revenge. But look closer. That person isn't just rude. They might be rushing to the hospital or having the worst day of their life. The moment you soften your lens, you realize that's God wearing stress, God wearing grief, God disguised as impatience, trying to survive the day. And when you stop judging their surface, you begin to reconnect with your own depth, because every person is a mirror too. Every interaction is a classroom, and every soul, even the ones who hurt you, is playing their role in your awakening. When you finally see God in others, you begin to resurrect God in yourself. And the line between me and them begins to disappear. The world isn't just made of atoms, it's made of attention. And what you refuse to see, you give power to without realizing. But when you open your eyes, not the physical ones, but the eyes of the soul, you'll find God in the subway, in the storm, in the stranger, and most of all, in the mirror. Most people die without ever having truly lived. They didn't run out of time. They ran out of vision. They spent a lifetime looking outward, searching for God in cathedrals, in gurus, in clouds, while the divine whispered from within, patient, unmoved, waiting. And they ignored it, because it didn't speak in thunder. It spoke in silence. But every now and then, a soul wakes up, not because life got easier, but because the illusion cracked. Something broke. A relationship, a belief, a future they thought was guaranteed. And in the wreckage, they glimpsed something else. Stillness, presence, a flicker of God where the ego used to stand. That was the moment they stopped looking for signs and became one. They no longer begged for miracles because they realized they were the miracle. They stopped chasing the life they wanted and started remembering the life they were meant to create, not through force, but through frequency, not through control, but through consciousness. Because awakening isn't a destination, it's a decision to remember that you were never the name, never the body, never the story. You were always the the awareness, watching it all unfold. And once you realize that, everything changes. Not because the world becomes perfect, but because your lens becomes clear. You see fear and no longer bow. You see chaos and no longer react. You see death and no longer flinch. Because you've remembered, this is not the end. This is the veil. And once it's lifted, you stop living like a character in someone else's dream and start creating your own. Not with ego, with presence, with power, with God. You don't need more time. You need to wake up in the time you have left. Because if you die before remembering who you are, the world won't mourn what you could have done, but your soul will remember what you chose to forget. So take this moment, not to change your life, but to see it, really see it. Because once you remember who you are, you'll never play small again. And once you see the world through the eyes of God, you'll never unsee it. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering you always were. And now that you've awakened, the only question left is, what will you do with your vision?